Welcome to Backroom Talk.
Carl, today I want to take a little time to talk about our hot new release, CoachRx.
We want CoachRx to be a platform for CCP coaches, for them to be able to effectively deliver the OPEX methodology and what they learned in CCP.
And gosh, I think it's scary, right? You know, it's like standing on a stage naked, putting that program design out to
Some people enjoy that.
To listen to more Backroom Talk, be sure to subscribe. Learn to design personalized programs with the OPEX system of coaching by heading to opexfit.com.
Welcome to another episode of Backroom Talk. And Carl, today I want to take a little time to talk about our hot new release, CoachRx, which will have been out for 2 days, I think, when this releases.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I think it's beneficial to start with talking about, how coaches delivered program design and nutrition design and lifestyle design over the past 20, 30, maybe even 50 years. So, and then obviously we'll have to get into like what CoachRx is and what are the features and all of that. But I just think it's good to start off with context, right? Like, let me start by asking you, how did you deliver programming when you first started coaching people?
So the very first program designs I delivered would have been like just through email. I used Beyond the Whiteboard for a while when I was in a CrossFit gym, which was just the clunkiest, most frustrating platform to use ever. And then I moved to Google Sheets and used spreadsheets for a while before ultimately getting into using TrueCoach.
Yeah, I was similar. I was email for a few years, and then started getting good at Excel like in 2006, 2007, and started using Excel, right? And I would get really creative with like tabs and what are tabs names, and everyone having their own Excel document, and going from like phases at the bottom to like months at the bottom, and things that still carry over and that we've seen in like TrueCoach and that we see right now in CoachRx. It's like that's where that stuff actually came from, right? Trying to organize things just a little bit better. But yeah, I think there's a lot of really, really good coaches today that are watching this that still deliver training programs through Excel, through email, and it just works for them, right? So I think before we get into the specifics of CoachRx, I think, any coach listening to this thing, there's no like silver bullet, right? Like there's no app, there's no technology that's going to be the answer to all of your problems, right? Like the best answer to everyone's problem is something that works the best for that individual person.
And I know it's maybe not the most efficient or shiniest way of delivering a program, but there's got to be some benefits and some good things about a program that arrives to the client by email that's like obviously like typed in and handwritten by that coach. If we think about it, it probably does feel a little bit more personal than it might feel getting a program inside of an app today.
Yeah, I think you could see it both ways, right? It's like, it might feel personable at first until you have a question, right? And then you're like, okay, but what about this? And then you're like, all right, I'm going to send them an email, and maybe they're not the quickest to respond to their emails, and I'm not going to get a response for another, 4, 6, 8 hours or something like that, right? So I do think, getting that program design in an email or an Excel document that's designed especially for you, I think that could be a good feeling. But I think what wears off over time is connection to that thing. They might be doing the program, everything might be going great, but at some point communication will be lost just because it's harder to sit down, open up your email, give context to what your question is, maybe copy and paste, or grab a screenshot of a workout. And you know what I mean? Like it becomes a lot, right? So I think what we've seen in the past, and coaches that are watching this that still use that method, you'll start to see your clients less engaged over time. Not because they don't enjoy the training program, but just because it's the barrier is just higher to communicate that way. It's a lot of work to pull up your email and do all of the things that I just mentioned. So I think you lose something over time in that method. But what people have to ask themselves, the things that we lose using that method, does it actually matter, right? Like Am I starting to see retention drop because of, loss of communication, or the barrier is a little bit higher for my clients? It's like, if not, and your clients are getting great results, keep doing it. And if it works well for you and you're like, I can scale this, or I don't want to scale this, I want to coach this many clients and this works great for me, it's like, who are we to say, like, get into this app and use this because it'll make you more efficient? It's like, you got to use what's working for you.
Can we just take a second to talk about, like, what are the things that need to happen for a coach to have or coach and a client to have a good experience in program design delivery?
Oh man, I don't know. Yeah, I'm not sure. I think the basics are, the client needs to see what the work is for the day, or what the prescription is for the day. They have to understand it. They have to have the ability to complete it and give their coach feedback if it went well, if it didn't go well, if everything's good, if everything is not good. And then that's how the program is progressed. I think as long as the method that you're using checks all of those boxes, I think you're on the right track. But I don't know exactly, like, this feature needs to be in here, or, the client needs to feel this way when they see this versus that. I'm not sure. I think it just depends, who that client is and who that coach is. But I think, those 4 things that I just mentioned just have to be checked for it to be an effective program.
Have you been through the process of taking clients from one platform into another, Carl? And like, what's that been like? I mean, going from Google Sheets to getting into an app, what was that like for you and your clients?
Yeah, probably 3 or 4 times actually, like on a larger level. Three times on a larger level. Going from like email to Sheets wasn't really or Excel wasn't really it wasn't a big deal, right? I just like put them into this thing because they weren't in anything. So it would be 3 times. And I don't know, I enjoy it, right? Because it's a time for us as coaches to sit back and kind of look at, the big picture for each one of our clients, right? Like, some coaches, they'll think about it and they'll be like, that's a drag. That's going to be a huge pain in the ass. I don't want to have to deal with that. But I look at it as an opportunity to like realign, right? Because if, like, let's say I'm coaching you, right? And like, I have you in this platform over here, and then I'm putting you into CoachRx, right? Like, I'm going to look at everything we've ever done. I'm going to recap everything, and I'm going to use that as an opportunity to put you in this new platform with a clean slate, right? Like, I want to make sure all data is transferred over. It's all in a spot that I can see it. Everything's nice. Everything's clean. It might take me 15 or 20 minutes to do that for you. But after I'm done with that, I'm like, that feels good. Now, me coaching Georgia on a week-to-week, month-to-month basis is going to be a lot more seamless, because I feel like I have a good handle on all of the data, metrics, information that I need to have the handle on.
Yeah, I have obviously been through that process with a couple of clients the last month or so, and it is, like you said, a very cathartic experience to kind of clean it out, move it to one place, see what might be missing, like what isn't in there that should be in there, what are we going to hit on this year in terms of assessments. So yeah, definitely it's been a good process there.
Yeah, I think it's just an audit, right? It's the same process that you would go through if you're like auditing your client list. It's a forced audit, because you're just like, okay, I have to take this person, make sure everything's in line. It's like, oh my gosh, I haven't audited this person in a while. I actually never assessed this, or I never looked at this, or I never looked at it this way. So it's a good opportunity to audit your entire client list.
Mm-hmm. So, gosh, we talked about CoachRx very briefly, but I feel like we should introduce what it actually is for people that are watching that aren't in there yet. And guys, if you're a CCP coach and you're not in there yet, hurry up and go get your free trial, okay? But what is it, Carl?
Yeah, so what we want it to be is, we want CoachRx to be a platform for CCP coaches, for them to be able to effectively deliver the OPEX methodology and what they learned in CCP really, really efficiently and effectively in a all-in-one platform. So, is it an all-in-one platform right now as we sit here? No, right? Like, we have a lot of things on the roadmap that we need to get in, and we're going to get those things in as quickly as possible. And, we're going to listen to the coaches that are in the platform. And if we think something is really important, and the coaches, the majority of coaches don't think that thing is important, and there's another thing that's very important, we're going to listen to them, and we're going to shift up our roadmap. But that's what we want it to be. We want it to be somewhere where CCP coaches can go in and just live, right, and coach their clients, because we felt a little bit of a disconnect, right? Like, as we wrap up CCP cohorts and we sign off, we say goodbye, obviously we have the the next step is our coaches submit their final projects. But after that, it's almost like, we stay connected through the membership site, but we're not giving them we weren't able to give them a lot of help in like ongoing program design, ongoing nutrition and behavior coaching and stuff like that, because we didn't have a platform to do it, right? We're just like, go use these other guys over here, and you're going to have to manipulate the system just a little bit for it to work relative to how we tell you to coach people. So it was always like a weird feeling of like not good enough. So that was just a really long way of saying we want it to be an all-in-one platform for CCP coaches.
And it's going to be the only place that someone can like truly put the OPEX method into practice in its like most pure and amazing form. What did you do prior to CoachRx to do that? Like, what did your process used to look like?
Yeah, it's what I did and what we taught all of our coaches to do was to use what we were all in True Coach, right? So it was like, True Coach, they were, outstanding partners of ours, and they're still, we still have a great relationship with those guys, and they have an outstanding platform. But we had to manipulate True Coach to fit for our methodology, right? For instance, when we would get the question on CCP cohort calls where it's like, okay, great, I do this consultation, but where do I put my consultation notes? And we're always like, okay, well, there's a feature in True Coach. It's not actually meant for us to use it for monthly consultations, but this is the best spot to do it. Do it this way. And then the pushback we always got was, but I can never like go back in and recap consultations like in one space, because if I put like exercise notes in, it would just override that. And then I just have this laundry list of exercise, consultation, notes for myself. It was just like all of this jumbled up, and that's not True Coach's fault. True Coach wasn't built for CCP coaches specifically. Like, we worked really close with them in the building of that platform, but it's not for our methodology, right? So it was there. That was just one example, but there's a million other examples of how we had to figure out workarounds. And when we did long-term planning, right, it's like, okay, well, get out of True Coach, go into Google Sheets, and then this is how we want you to set up your Google Sheet. And people are like, well, I've never been in Google Sheets. This is too complicated for me. I'm not going to stay consistent in this because I don't feel like it fits my flow. And then it was like, okay, well, if you're not going to do that, then think of, you know what I mean? So it's just like a snowball of things of like, well, try this, try that, try that. Now it feels really good because we have built a platform, and ideas that come into our brain, we're just going to implement those things inside of the platform. As the education evolves, which it surely will, right? As the education evolves, so will the platform. It'll evolve to meet the education exactly where it is, right? So that's what feels really good about it, is now we have the opportunity to have really good synergies between what we tell coaches to do and what we can actually have them do in this platform.
One of the big disconnects I always found before operating in True Coach and then having a spreadsheet on the side was kind of the coach does all this amazing work, right, in this spreadsheet. We've got all our assessment data and structural balance and this on this date and this on this date. We've got our year's plan built out. But the client never sees that stuff unless the coach makes the effort to share it with the client and sit down and have a conversation, which is just an extra step. And, the client might not want to open up that Google sheet that's the coach has shared with them. Having those things in two separate places made that communication hard, and it made it harder for the client to see behind the daily program design. Having that all in one place where the coach can actually show the long-term plan to the client can see all of their fitness monitoring exercises in one place. For the client that's interested in it, because obviously it's not every client, I think it's going to create such a greater connection and buy-in to what they're doing and the value of that relationship with the coach.
Yeah, something that stuck with me a couple of years ago, maybe a year and a half ago, I was going through some of Precision Nutrition stuff, and I was kind of I had a sample client in there, and I was kind of working around with some nutrition and behavior stuff. And what I really liked about that website that spit out this PDF, it was it gave you this really nice, neat printout or PDF document to email over to your client. And it was just a recap of this is who you are, this is who your coach is, this is what your plan is. Here are some tips to, execute the plan as effectively as possible. Here are some things that your coach is going to do. Like, I like that, right? So we're talking about how do we, when I create a long-term plan, how is something like that spit out to my client, right? And it's like we have to have the ability to toggle that on and off, because that would blow up some clients' minds. They'd be like, I don't want to see that. Like, I'm not paying you money to, go in and learn about my program, right? Like, maybe that client just isn't ready for that yet, right? But I think things like that, once we get to that point, now we're talking, like, when we start talking about coach-client connection, it's like, man, there's no better way, in my opinion, to connect your client to what they're doing outside of telling them what they're doing and why they're doing it. So, yeah, that's some stuff that we're really excited about as well.
Yeah, I mean, I reflect back to experiences, years ago, and I don't know that I would have wanted to share that with my client, Carl, because I don't think I would have felt confident enough in what I had laid out. Like, even if I had these ideas somewhere in a Google sheet, like on a hidden tab, I don't think I would have felt good about what I was sharing with the client. Do you think that CoachRx is going to put coaches in a position to always feel good and confident about that?
No, no, I think CoachRx will help coaches with their process, but the coach has to figure that stuff out, right? Like, a coach that I've heard that so many times, right? Like, I don't feel confident in my abilities as a coach. And when you start to dig deeper and you start to look at I get emails all the time from CCP coaches, and they're just like, I'm, one client into my final project. Do you mind if I send you a program? I don't want to send this to James quite yet, right? And I'm like, yeah, I'll take a look. And they'll have a laundry list of things where it's just like, I'm not good at this, I'm not good at that, I don't quite understand it. And you look at the program and you're just like, it's actually fine. Like, this is real. Like, maybe I would do, like, this exercise here based on what you said their goals are, but I don't even want to tell them that, because that's just like, that's stuff that doesn't even matter, right? So I think that's a coach's thing, right? Where, just as human beings, we always have a level of imposter syndrome, right? Especially when we're learning something brand new. And we will always have that lack of confidence. And the only thing that's really going to effectively cover up that lack of confidence, or not cover up, get over that lack of confidence, is just doing, right? Just do it. And you don't need, me or you or James or anyone else to go into your program and give you a stamp of approval, because what does that stamp of approval mean? It's like, you just showed me a week of one person out of every person in the entire world, and now I'm saying you're a good coach based on what your A, B's, and C's are. That makes absolutely no sense to me, right? So I think if you're a coach and you're coaching people, it's okay to feel a little bit hesitant, right? To, like, unveil your brain, right? Because that's a weird spot to be in, where it's like you're showing someone their design, their plan, and they could look at that and be like, wow, thanks a lot, that was really helpful, you're really smart. Or they can look at it and be like, yeah, this shit doesn't make sense, I heard this here, and then I'm going to challenge you here, right? So I just feel like coaches need to be good with it. If you're coaching people, that should be your stamp of approval that you're good enough to do it, right? I'm not saying, like, as a coach, like, don't coach people until you don't have any imposter syndrome and you're 100% confident in what you're doing. But if someone is paying you to coach them, it's like, you should already be past that stuff. You know what I mean? So I get it when people are brand new and maybe you're coaching your first one or two clients, but once you start to get experience, like, you just have to have confidence in it. And why I love our model is because if you get it wrong this week, you have an opportunity to get it right next week. So yeah, I don't think a platform will, like, solve that problem. It'll help definitely, because, there's little things where it's like, add this to your priorities, or, an accumulation phase, think about these things. Cool, right? But I don't think those things are going to, like, solve those problems for coaches. Coaches just need to do it and build confidence and experience. And if you get it wrong today, just fix it next week. It's not a big deal.
And gosh, I think it's scary, right? It's like standing on a stage naked, putting that program design out to
Some people enjoy that. That's not scary to some people.
True. But no, it is very, very revealing. It's putting like your heart and your brain out there for all of your clients to see. But that's where growth happens. I mean, those scary moments are an opportunity to grow and to learn. And, you know, even if you do make mistakes, like you said, you have that opportunity to assess and do a little bit better next week. So I do think it will be a great opportunity for coaches to kind of put on their big boy or big girl pants and put their stuff out there and take feedback and probably see that the world around them doesn't burn down based on their lack of confidence.
Where do you think that fear comes from, though? Because I think that's important to understand too. I have an idea, but I just want to kind of tease that out of you. Like, where do you think the fear of showing that to the public comes from?
I think lack of competency and as an extension of that, lack of practice. Like, it's the knowledge and then also just repetition, putting it into practice. And then fear, like, is this actually going to get my clients results?
I think it comes from people being used to seeing other people ridiculed. Like, open up social media on any given day and you'll see someone put an idea out there, and then you'll read comments and you'll have, like, 15 assholes that are like, you're wrong and this is why you're wrong, right? So I think a lot of people are afraid of it because we're so used to, and I'm not blaming social media for this, right? Because it existed before social media, but we're so used to seeing people ridiculed publicly, right? Like, and not people that are like, presidents and famous people and actors and athletes, but just like normal people, right? Ridiculed publicly on their platform, which is, Facebook, Instagram, blah, blah, blah. And they're just like, oh man, I don't want to get into that. Right. So I think there's a little bit of that where people just don't want to be ridiculed. Right. Like, and maybe it is a, just a lack of, true lack of confidence in themselves. But I think that a lot of people are more afraid of what the consequence of that lack of competency would be. And I think that consequence most times is being ridiculed, right? Even if it is one-to-one, like, you're my client, I show you this thing and you're just like, no, this is wrong, that's stupid, you're fired, right? Like, I think we're scared of being ridiculed. I don't think we're really that afraid of the thing not working, because if we were afraid of the thing not working, me showing you the thing is not going to have any consequence to if it works or not, right? I just think it's that fear of just someone judging you.
How do you get over that?
Man, this is really easy to say, but truly not give a shit about what other people say and think, right? But to not give a shit, you have to have, like what you said, you have to have confidence in your abilities. So do it a lot. Right? Do it a lot. Like, if you worked with, like, let's say you've worked with 1,000 clients in your lifetime and you're just like this superstar that gets all of these results, but everything that you say publicly is just ridiculed and everyone says you're wrong. You're probably okay when you close your eyes at night because you're like, my clients love me and I get results. I don't care what, this person or that person says. So I think it's a level of not caring too much what other people think.
Yeah. And I mean, you obviously have to back up the reason why you're doing something and have a reason behind what your training plan is, what you're showing to your client. On the social media side, I'm just like kind of stuck there now, Carl, because it's such a cesspool. But on that side, like, if coaches are nervous about being ridiculed by putting their clients' results or their workout or, a program design on social media, and someone's ridiculing them for that, they have to remember that that person doesn't have all the details. They don't have all the context to think that that's a bad exercise or a bad prescription. And when someone jumps on their iPhone and, they leave some nasty comment, that person doesn't have context for what they're looking at. They just have that one little snapshot. So it really grinds my gears. Is social media good or bad for coaching? I know this is a bit of a tangent, but
Geez, I don't know. I think, sorry, I've said I don't know 3 or 4 times today. Apologize. I know some things, I promise. I'm not sure. I think it depends on why someone's there and what their intentions are behind being there, right? Like, if someone's on social media because they're like, I want to attract a certain kind of client and, I want to kind of like open their eyes into my beliefs and what I do and the way I see things and the way I see fitness and blah, blah, blah. It's like, yeah, I think social media could be great, right? But if you're on social media telling a lie, right, over and over and over and over again, it's like, I don't think that's the right thing to do. But again, it's like, who am I to judge that? Because we go back to, fitness influencers, right? Like, I think we've talked about this before, but like, you go to like, you hit that like little search bar on your Instagram, and it like has like the, what is it called? Not recommended, but you know what I'm talking about.
The
Like,
discover
yeah,
sort
yeah.
of thing.
Yeah, and you see that, and it's like, social media is really smart, right? Like, the algorithms are really good, right? So it understands what you're looking at. So when I press my little search thing, all I see is, fitness influencers that are half naked with 500,000 followers and putting out a message that we would scoff at, right? But it's like, maybe they're seeing a lot of success in what they're doing, right? Like maybe they're making, 250K a year. Maybe they're impacting a very specific subset of individuals, and that subset of individuals are now living more fulfilled lives because they have this influencer to look at. And even though they're doing stuff that we would be like, yeah, no one should be doing that, maybe they're getting, 15,000 people to move today. I don't know, right? So I think optics are just so weird, right? And it depends. Like we look at things with our lenses, but we don't always look at things with other people's lenses on, right? So I've made an effort to like not judge, right, when I see stuff like that, because it's hard. It's really hard based on our beliefs, right? But I look at that and, I don't put enough time, effort, and energy to really think about who they are, what they're doing, and all of that. But it's really easy to put those people down and be like, yeah, they're disingenuous and they're putting out a shitty message and all of that. It's easy to do that, but like you said, you don't have context. You don't know the whole story. You don't know who they are, where they came from. You don't know the impact that they're having on the people that follow them, assuming they're real people that follow them, so on and so forth. So I think social media can be really good for the industry, and I also think it could be really bad. But to kind of like draw a line in the sand, I think if you're being true to who you are and you're putting out a message that's beneficial to the world as a whole, yeah, like thumbs up, good job, right? But if you're being fake, and like we know people, right, like that are on social media and they have a lot of followers, and you're just like, you're not like that in real life. You know what I mean? Like I've known a lot of people like that. So I would say those people are doing it wrong, my opinion, right? But I would say they're doing it wrong. And the ones that are staying true and putting out really good stuff, even if it's stuff that we don't agree about or agree on, it's like, yeah, keep doing your thing.
We also ultimately all have to take personal responsibility for how we decide to engage with those platforms. And it's easy to like fall into that trap of thinking this one person does it and they have great success, I have to do that too. But I think if anyone stops and thinks critically for a moment, that comparison game like never plays out well. And like you said, you just have to be true to who you are. And if someone has great success building up a coaching business on social media, kudos to them. It doesn't mean it's the only way to do it though.
Yeah, I mean, where we should have problems with it though is it can impact the industry, right? Like if the wrong message is put out enough times and enough people see it, and enough people that have great influence are pushing it, and we know it's the wrong message, that can actually move the industry, and that matters to us, right? Like if we weren't in the fitness industry and we're like, bankers, or we were on Wall Street or we're doing something else, we'd be like, yeah, cool, we don't really give a shit, right? But we're in the industry and we have a very, very strong stance in the industry, and we have a very, very strong vision and mission and all of that. So to us, we have to look at that stuff and anything that's pushing the industry and what we would deem the wrong way. Well, I'll speak for myself. I would have an issue with that.
For sure. The other piece I'm kind of curious, and it links back to CoachRx a little bit, Carl, but the idea of selling templates online and then also doing individual design coaching through an app like CoachRx. Like, do you think you can do both at the same time, offer both service offerings?
Yeah, I mean, people are. Yeah, there are people that are doing it and they're having a lot of success. And by success, I mean they're making a lot of money. So I don't know if that answered the question, but yeah, I do think that coaches can do it. Do I think they can do both of them very, very effectively? I think, maybe, maybe not. I think you have to have a lot of resources, and you have to have a good team behind you and all of that to do it really, really effectively, because they're both a lot of work, right? They're both a lot of work. Like if it's a good enough template to get enough people results, there's some thought that has to go into that thing. Or a better way of saying it, if it's a good enough template that is not going to break a bunch of people, there's a lot of thought that goes into it. And then same on the ID side, if they also have ID clients, we know how much work that is to coach a human being. So, if they have the time, resources, energy, if they're able to coach enough people to take care of themselves and make it their profession, I think it can be done.
Yeah, it's a really common question I hear from CCP coaches entering the program, and then also on the other side, like, is it possible to run a hybrid system? So yeah, just thought I'd ask.
Yeah, so I think there's, when we say hybrid, it's weird today when we say hybrid, we think online and then coaching people one-to-one online as well. If we were to say hybrid last January, we would have thought, okay, we're running a group program and we're also running an ID program in person. So it's funny how, our mindset when we even hear that term has shifted so much just because of COVID, right, in 2020. But I wouldn't say, and we talk to coaches all the time, through Accelerator and all of that, where, they do ask that question. They're just like, is it a good business play to run hybrid, like in-person group or template online plus ID? And it's all about, what are your resources? What is your expense structure? What does this thing look like? Why are you doing it, right? Like, ask yourself why you're doing it. Because if it's cash, yeah, there's a million easy ways to make some easy cash if you have enough influence to do it. But I would say not 100% of the time, but 90% of the time that it's not a good idea to do it, because it's hard enough to be really successful in just one thing. When you try to get into the realm of trying to be really successful in multiple things, I think you're just lowering your odds.
Mm-hmm. So you mentioned this, COVID changed a lot in the fitness industry, and one of the things that it changed was that our brains immediately go to this online idea. Was that one of the impetuses behind getting CoachRx out? Like, do you think that lit a fire under you to want to get CoachRx out to CCP coaches?
Man, that's a good question. No, not at all. Yeah, that's a really good question. I never even thought about it.
Really?
Never even thought about it. No, right? Because we've been talking about this for years. We've been talking about how nice would it be if we had a platform that we could develop, build a roadmap for, and tweak as we see necessary. Yeah, it was just that. Yeah. Do I think it's more beneficial now that there's a bunch of online coaches? Yeah, because those coaches need to be able to deliver the method in various ways, right? Like, our gyms are delivering the method online, some of them right now, because they're not able to be open still. Or they have a certain set of clients that are not yet comfortable coming back into the gym for XYZ, or they just can't come back into the gym because they have kids at home now, right? So we have to be able to support those coaches in our gyms as well, right? So we didn't do it because of COVID, but COVID and a lot of our coaches being online right now, that's obviously going to impact what the roadmap looks like, what are important features to be in, so on and so forth. We have to support those people.
It feels like there's never been a more important time to streamline that communication process for the coach on their end, and then also the client and how they're delivering workout videos and putting results in, and just making sure that they can train without their coach there all the time. Do you think that the way someone who is purely remote versus in an ID gym, like in an OPEX gym, or a personal trainer in a Globo gym, like the way those three groups use the app, is it going to be different?
No, no, not really. I think, all of the three groups that you just talked about, the one thing that all of them have to have in common at this point is they all have to be CCP coaches. So the way that you use CoachRx, if you're in either one of those buckets, would be exactly the same. Maybe, what you write in your notes and your program design and how you're trying to tell clients to do things, maybe that language changes a little bit. If someone's, face to face with you, you don't have to be as specific. You're just like, boom, boom, boom. Like those notes are for you as a coach to update as you go. Versus, you're on the floor, there's 15 people, there's a coach supporting them versus they're across the world, training in, their garage, right? Like the way that the coach uses the app, the language inside of it and how they communicate with their clients might change a little bit, but overall the way that the app is used would be the exact same, just because it's based on the methodology.
Yeah, I see it being like, even for a personal trainer who is working in person with their client, and I know a lot of them that use TrueCoach now, but incredibly beneficial for those people to have their client, take a little autonomy and ownership over what is actually going on in that session, and being able to track their progress from week to week to week versus just showing up to the gym and, doing what they're told for 30 or 60 minutes. And then another common gripe I hear on the phone all the time from personal trainers is like just the challenge of being able to work with clients on behavior and nutrition outside of that like 1 hour that they're with them. So being able to give them prescriptions that they can take home with them, maybe some like movement for days that they're not coming into the facility. I think that'll be hugely beneficial.
Yeah. Yeah. We're, if people are watching this on the day that it's out, or that this comes out, it'll be 2 days, 3 days?
2 days.
2 days after CoachRx launches. So right now, as we sit, we don't have those behavior nutrition aspects in quite yet. They'll be in 20 days, 30 days, something like that. So when those things are in, the goal is, the problem that we're trying to solve for is compliance. Because we can think of a million different really cool ways to implement nutrition and behavior, but if it isn't low barrier and easy enough for the client to be compliant to, it's all for naught. We're just going to fall back to exactly where we are, where it's like, okay, now let's, gather up and think about how we can get clients to do the simple things outside of exercise. So that's the problem that we are trying to solve for, is let's make this as simple and effective as possible. It doesn't have to be the sexiest thing in the world. It doesn't have to have 15 APIs and connections to different services and stuff like that. We just want it to be something that a client can look at, get context, do, mark done, and be done. And the coach has context on the back end, where it's like, I want to pull up a screen and see over the past 7, 30, 90, 2 years, right? Like how compliant has my client been in exercise, nutrition, and behavior, right? And if we see that number, let's just throw a number out there, 72%, right? We're like, that's okay, but we want that to be over 80%. So what do I need to do in prescription to get that number to bump over 80%? So I just say all that just to say that the way that the client sees it and executes on it needs to be really, really simple. Because I'm sure you've been in a position where you're like, on your whiteboard and you're like, okay, the client needs to do this and they need to do this. And you finish and you just look at that thing and you're like, this is fucking beautiful, right? And then you push that out to your client and they're like 2 weeks in and they're just like, this isn't working for me. Or they're like radio silence and they're just not doing the things that you just wrote on that whiteboard. And you're just like, so you get to a spot where you're just like, do I just not prescribe this stuff anymore and just focus on exercise because that's the only thing they're compliant to? And the answer has to be no. Like you have to focus on the simple things. You have to focus on those and you have to really push those things forward. It's like, yeah, I think we do have clients that are they have really good lifestyles and maybe there's some refinement things and we don't really have to dig into that stuff with them because they're good, right? So for those clients, yeah, they're fine. But for the client that's like, you get on a consultation, they're like, I'm not seeing results. I want to lose weight. I'm fatter, blah, blah, blah. I'm stressed out. It's like, but you're not doing the simple things. But they're like, but I'm doing the exercise. And it's like, it's not all about that. So that's what we need to solve for is helping the client that is good with the exercise, but is not good with the other things.
I'm thinking about all these beautiful nutrition and behavior spreadsheets that I built out over the years, Carl, where, it'd have a list of like 5 simple activities and, the day and the date, and the client was supposed to go in and like mark them a certain color if they completed them and a different color if they didn't. And man, there's like 1 in 5 people, maybe 1 in 10 people that actually want to do that.
Yeah. I wouldn't do that. I'd do it for like a week and then I'd be like, yeah, I think I'm good, right? Like I don't want to spend 5 minutes opening up this thing. Emma's over there. We did that with nutrition with Emma for a while. I think it was beneficial, but yeah, Emma didn't want to go in there like every single day for the rest of her life and be like, I eat this many palms of protein. I eat that, you know what I mean? Like it just becomes fatiguing, right? So it's like, how do we make that more automatic? But I do think that, the spreadsheet thing and all that, like I think that's really good for clients to be ultra focused on one thing for an amount of time. And, we talked about it when we hit on like habits, right? And like intentional behaviors and how those can turn into habits. It's like if someone does that and they're compliant to that spreadsheet for 30 days and in your mind, you're like, we're going to do this forever. And then they just stop doing it. Maybe that became a habit for them and they don't have to open that spreadsheet anymore. Or maybe they don't have to hit, yes, I did this thing. So that has to be the ultimate goal, is to create really, really good lifestyle habits with our clients. And once they get there, it's like you shouldn't have to track it if it's a habit, right? Like we don't track things that, we do without thinking about, right? So I don't think we should track anything for the rest of our lives.
And as coaches, we still have the ability to check in on those things, right? Like we're asking those questions on nutrition, on behavior, on exercise, on hydration, on sleep. Each time we sit down for a consult, like a quick little touch, how was this for the month? On a Sunday, if we're having them do like a reflection of how those elements went for the week, they're reflecting on it there. But it's really like the daily actioning that's missing right now.
Yep, agreed.
Can't wait for that to land, Carl. I'm so
soon.
excited.
Georgia, you'll be the first. You'll be the first to be in there. I promise you.
Thank you, Carl. I appreciate it.
I know a guy. You know the same guy, so we're good.
So we hit on confidence as it related to more coaches being willing to show their like planning and the behind the scenes of what they're doing on the program design side. But one thing I did want to talk about is efficiency. And like, is this CoachRx actually going to make coaches more efficient? And secondarily to that, what are the things that are stopping coaches from being efficient right now?
Yeah, let's start with the latter. I think the big things that are stopping coaches from being efficient are we've said it a million times, but I'll say it again: competency and like actually knowing how. When a coach is in CoachRx, like we have to assume that they're competent because now they've gone through our program. If they're not competent, we have to look at ourselves and say, why aren't we making these coaches competent? So don't email us and email us and tell us what we need to fix. So I would say it's that, and then secondarily, it's not having a process. So what we want to give coaches in CoachRx is a process. It's like with every single client, we want you to do this, we want you to do that, then we want you to do this, right? And that's laid out so clearly, right? And there's small things around like planning, right? Like I've talked to a lot of coaches that are like, oh, I don't plan, I just kind of keep it in my brain, man, right? Like, and I'm just like, okay, cool. I know there's some coaches even watching that can do that, but at some point, it just becomes too much. We only have so much capacity up here. And maybe I'm just stupid. I could be, right? Maybe that's why I need to like see everything and, like touch it and feel it and all of that. Maybe I'm a little slower than most coaches, but I'm a huge believer in, you're going to like, things are just going to click if you can visualize it. Like if you can like open up something and like see it really quick. You don't have to like stay in it, but just peek at it and then close it, right? So even the aspect of, long-term, short-term, and daily planning and making that muscle memory where it's like for every client, I go through that process. And I think that makes coaches more efficient, but I also think that gives clients a better product. Like it's a better service because you're taking that time and you're doing those things for every single client. And once we start to see consistency in how you coach people, especially if you're running a business, right? Like that's what we're all aiming for, is consistency inside of our practices and inside of our business. Because if we're inconsistent with client A versus client B, and they talk to each other and they're like, well, I'm getting this product or I'm getting this service and I'm not, oh, you get consultations, I don't, I feel like I should be paying less, like it becomes messy, right? So we need to create a process in how we coach people. We obviously give coaches a process inside of CCP. So all we're doing is we're laying out that process in the way that they coach their clients in the platform. So competency would be number one, and then let's call it 1A would be having a process and how you coach people.
What about environment? Because I've heard you talk about this one before, Carl, and I also know that you've been messing around with your environment recently and working on your own efficiency. So
Yeah, I'm not done. Yeah, I'm not done yet. I sent Georgia a text the other day with like my new setup and all that. I was really excited about it. But I'm like, I'm always, not always, I'm often thinking about like, how can I make that better, right? Like it's pretty good, but how can I make it better? And maybe I spend too much time thinking about that, and that's making me less efficient because I'm spending so much time trying to be efficient. But environment to me is really, really important. And I'll notice it in myself, right? Like, I feel like, everything else, like everything for me personally, lifestyle wise and stuff like that is squared away enough where, you know, cognitive abilities at 8 versus 12 should be the exact same for me, right? And I noticed myself kind of getting bogged down or tired of being in one place and then wanting to move to another place and then I thought about it. I'm like, why do I feel like that? And the simple answer was my setup and my environment wasn't attractive enough, or the tools that were around me weren't good enough where I felt like I couldn't leave that thing, right? So that's what I've been working on the past couple weeks, is trying to figure out like, what is my optimal environment? Like, what's my optimal screen setup? What's my optimal audio setup? What's my optimal chair? What's my optimal angle? Like all of those things. So I'm just kind of messing around with all those things just to try to feel like I can get into a flow easier and stay in it longer without feeling like I have to like relocate myself into a different environment.
yeah, I definitely the environment factor is huge. And gosh, one thing that I found to be incredibly helpful just the last probably few months that I've been doing it is just listening to music in the background. So I'm not as aware of the distractions around me, because the reality is, like, at the moment, both my husband and I are working from home, and typically we're both like, doing our work on the table downstairs when I'm doing my program design, and it's distracting having him around me, making noise and listening to things. So putting on a little soothing music has been so helpful. And I've also evaluated what days I'm program designing for certain clients and shifted that around. And having like clients on one day and then other like clients on another day I know we talk about it all the time, and I should have been doing it, but I wasn't doing it, Carl.
Yeah. Oh, shame on you,
I
Georgia.
know.
Yeah, so I've actually taken that approach to everything, right? Like even outside of program design, because obviously I don't coach a lot of people, right? So I'm not trying to like refine my ultimate program design skills, but just everything with the business even, right? It's like, I set myself up to have themes for the day. So, and I think this would be beneficial to everyone, coaches, business owners, everything, right? So it's like, if you're running a fitness business, maybe you shouldn't be coaching your clients 5 days a week, right? Like 8 hours a day, 5 days a week, because when is the refinement on the business actually occurring and happening? So what I did was, I have a strategy day, I have an this day, a that day, and I theme those days, and those are like my main focuses for that day. So when I sit down and I think about like what are the big things I need to get done for that day, now I have a theme where I'm like, okay, I need to get these strategy pieces really knocked out, and maybe I just need to spend some time with everything closed and headphones on and sitting down and just thinking. Maybe that needs to be an hour in my calendar, because it's always a rat race. There's always another thing to do. We can fill our time with a lot of different things, but what I found, if I don't have a framework in how I organize and spend my time, I'm always just thinking about the next thing to do, or I'm thinking about what I'm not doing that needs to get done, and it just really stresses me out, and like that angst really comes in. So theming your days outside of program design is super beneficial as well.
Yeah, gosh, it's stressful, and then it also makes the quality of what you're working on worse because you don't have your undivided attention on it. So CoachRx, any additional thoughts you want to leave coaches on, or anything like about the process you want to hit on before we wrap up, Carl?
No, I think anyone watching, if you guys are in CoachRx right now, continue to send us feedback. But if it's negative, if it's positive, whatever it is, send it to us. Because we're listening to you guys, and that's how we're really developing this thing, right? Like, we're at the tail end of beta, and there's a couple coaches that have honestly, they've shaped what we've done in this thing over the past 30, 45 days. So that's super beneficial to them, of course, because they're making this platform what they need it to be, but it's super beneficial to us because that's what we want to make the platform. We want to make it beneficial for you guys, not just us here at OPEX, because we don't have 200 clients in this thing, and we need this thing to work optimally for us, right? Like we're probably at 1/10 of what you guys are at client wise and working in this thing. So we just want your feedback. And if you're not in it and you're a CCP coach, you got to get in it, right? Like, get in it. Go through the trial. If it's not a good fit for you and you don't continue, just let us know why it's not a good fit for you. And we'll 100% reply back to you, and we'll probably try to get those things in if it makes sense for us.
And I just got to say, like, one of the things I really love about OPEX and about CCP is that collaborative environment, like between the team here and the coaches that are in our program. It's not like, this big corporate body that's putting out education or an app to people and doesn't really care what they have to say. Like, everything that OPEX does is for their coaches. And I know I'm obviously biased sitting here saying that, but I've lived that and experienced it. And I know you, Carl, and why you wanted to put this thing together. And I'm just so excited to see how it positively impacts our community.
Yeah. I mean, we tell coaches all the time, know what you don't know, right? And I think we do okay sometimes, knowing what we don't know. And, that's no different with this platform, right? Like, we know enough in our heads to get this thing out really effectively and make it good, where it sits today, but it's going to get a lot better by us listening to the people that are using it more than we are.
We need you guys.